Welcome in, Hawks fans. Your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for another Believe in Hawks episode. The Hawks make their, I guess not prime time because it wasn't airing on both coasts, but a prime time-ish debut tonight against the Orlando Magic on NBC and winning in going away fashion, 127-112. A game where you saw, again, team ball comes alive, helps them get the advantage. Obviously, Orlando has their own issues that you can tell by watching them. But the Hawks won this game tonight, and they did a good job on both ends of the ball. And as they continue to navigate this stretch without Trae Young. So I appreciate you guys tuning into another Believe in the Hawks. We're going to obviously break down the game and a couple of storylines coming out of the game. Just before I got on here, I read something about Zaccharie, Risacher, and Quin Snyder being asked about his minutes. A lot of people are not happy. So when we get through all the charades and stuff, I will let you guys know. But let me get into that. If this is your first time watching the pod, or if you watched me a couple of times and have been on the fence, I'm just saying, don't be afraid to go ahead, hit the subscribe button, get more Believe in Hawks content whenever, turn the notification bell on, like the video, leave a comment, anything of the sorts. Definitely get them likes up. Please hit the like button, by the way, for all y'all watching. Just hit this as soon as you hear this part of it, just hit like. And follow me on Twitter at Bryce_2K as well. So yeah, so let's go ahead and dive right into it. So Hawks, like I said, win 127-112. You know, coming into this game, Quin Snyder did something that isn't necessarily weird, but it's different. You know, Hawks coming off a 4-game road trip. Usually when you have that type of trip, coach usually tries to give the team that next day after that last game of the road trip off. Just, you know, you've been on the road, you've been traveling and playing. I want to let you guys rest up because that's a big thing during the season that you're always trying to manage as a coach and as a medical staff is guys, so you're not wearing them out too early, you know, just because of all the things that have to go on. And I think it was Kevin and who writes for the Hawks NBA.com, and he basically was like they practice essentially on Monday, which he was like is mildly interesting. Like, okay, they're practicing. And then on the broadcast tonight, the NBC guys said the shoot-around was more of a practice today. And clearly Quin came into this kind of being like, okay, Trae's not here. We need to practice what we're going to try to be while he is gone, which I think was the right move here because the Hawks came out tonight with a different energy. They didn't start slow. That's also been one of the big issues with the Hawks. They always start slow and really just came out and kind of was able just to come play a certain way and maintain it well enough throughout the game and even to get as big of a lead as 24 in the game against the Magic. But clearly, you know, when Quin before the game talked, he just talked about how, like, you know, with Trae gone, we have to play a completely different style of game. And that's really going to impact us offensively because of what he can do. I think some people underappreciate Trae's offensive output because he really is an offensive engine for this team. They're just so much better offensively because he gets shots for everybody. Somebody asked, why are we such a low volume 3-point shooting team? And it's just because Trae's not out there to set up shooters with good looks and get more threes up. And so, you know, he really, I think, wanted to try to get them like, all right, this is what we need to be while Trae is out, right? And, you know, really the main person who's been filling in for Trae in that spot has been Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Tonight, you saw kind of an up and down from him. He had 7 turnovers tonight, right? I mean, listen, some people were not happy with the point guard minutes, but at the same time, they're asking, who else are you going to put in there? And I'm like, well, I'm asking who else are you going to put in there, actually, because I'm like, who else do you have? I mean, I guess you could put Dyson there more, but I feel like that's pretty much the offense, him and Dyson trying to run the offense and then try to find connectors and try to make the offense go. And then obviously I think some people also go like, well, we can do maybe more Jalen point forward minutes as well. But, you know, they came out with a great energy. They came out great defensively, and they were able to create enough good looks early to get an early lead. Zaccharie, Risacher scored the first, 14 points? He scored 11 of the first 14 points, I believe, for the Hawks. Couple and ones, a 3-pointer. I mean, I love how they involved Zach early in this game. He played big. And I've said this multiple times on the pod, especially the last couple episodes. If the Hawks are going to have success while Trae is out, Dyson and Zach have to be good offensively. Like, they have to. Both of them have to. And in the games that they've both given the Hawks something offensively, they're 2-0 in those games. The Pacers game and this game. Can't just be one. It has to be both, unless one of them goes nuclear, which more realistically, probably Zach would be the one closer to going who has that nuclear game than maybe a Dyson Daniels, right? But overall, Zach got off to a great start, and I think that really just kind of picked up the energy because Zach's one of our energy guys. Dyson really came out with the bag tonight. He had 18 points in this game, and really Jalen and Kristaps only had 17 for Jalen and 15 for Kristaps. It's helped them not have to, feel like they need to score closer to 30 points to win. Even though Kristaps didn't have a great offensive night tonight, you can still see how he can help this team. I think for Kristaps, this was the best game he's had as a Hawk anchoring on defense. Because that's been something I think that has been a bit of a disappointment for some people, has been his defense. He's 7-3, but that doesn't mean you can now all of a sudden just start defending. Because sometimes it's just, I always would say he's not like Mo Gay, who's an athletic defensive big. He's just a big person. So he has to make more of an effort to put himself and get himself involved in actions and take on defensive challenges because you have that size. And now you just have to use it to your advantage on the defensive side of the ball to then create, block shots, miss shots, and help Orlando, miss shots. And I think this matchup was better for him because Orlando essentially plays through bigs. So when you're the front court of Atlanta, they're playing through Paolo, they're playing through Franz, they're playing through Wendell, they're playing through their bigs, right? So you just need to be able to protect the rim and stay in front of them. So the matchup, I think, Orlando's not a team that's just going to swing the ball everywhere, and so it's going to leave you scrambling and trying to stop three-point shooters. And I think KP can struggle in those situations just because, again, he's not the fastest guy. But if you're saying, hey, we're just going to go right at you, KP's like, all right, my size can now become more of a factor. And I think that was tonight. So, like I said, the Hawks, I think, did some good stuff. Got the lead, and they also finished quarters well. They finished the second quarter well. They finished the third quarter well. They finished quarters well. If you remember last year, the Hawks struggled at times to finish at the end of quarters, and that would sometimes hurt them. The Chicago game was an example this year. Had a lead. They let Chicago make a big run at the end of the second quarter, and then third quarter, that was where it completely flipped the script. And so seeing that they were able to kind of end quarters on a good note and end on runs was a very strong sight to see because that's what they need to do. These are the things they need to do while Trae is out. Defend, which they've been able to do, but also try to get the most out of possessions, and everybody tries to pitch in and do their part. Hawks tonight shot 56% from the field compared to Orlando's 43%. Hawks also shot 43% from three compared to Orlando's 32%. So offensively, really good night. They only took 72 shots but made 40 of them. So best thing you can do without Trae is try to get the most efficient hoops you can. They also got to the free throw line a lot. This was a very heavy free throw shooting game. Both teams had a total of 75 free throws combined. So both teams were at the line. Hawks had 42 free throw attempts. You love to see it, made 34 of them. So they were able to take advantage of a lot of the free points they were to get tonight. They had 18 turnovers. That's a little high, but I think, like Quinn mentioned before the game, without Trae, you're probably going to have high turnovers just because, right? They only had 23 assists. Orlando actually had more of 26. Orlando had 17 turnovers. Boards continue to be an issue for Atlanta. Orlando had 14 offensive rebounds and won the rebounding battle, 41 total compared to Atlanta's 34. That has been an issue all year, is that this team struggles at getting rebounds. And I've said that the Hawks have to limit that or at least be competitive in that realm to help in these games, because you want to try to limit the team from getting extra possessions if you can. Hawks, though, were active. They had 6 blocks a night. So they were definitely contesting Orlando's shots. Mo Gay had a couple of those. And I think, obviously, they did a good thing. Desmond Bane was injected in this game because he threw down a Okongwu, which it was really a hard foul. It was more of like a strip down, and Okongwu fell. So that would have been just a hard foul, but it was the ball was there, and he kind of threw it at Okongwu, and then that kind of got him. He got a flavored one and a tech, which took him out of the game. It was weird because it's like, why did you just give him a flagrant 2? But I guess they didn't want to, but they also were like, we kind of need to eject him from the game, so let's just give him a tech. So I was fired up about that. But yeah, overall tonight, I think like I said, team game. Mo Gay continues to be great defensively for us. Really did a great job on Paulo. I think he's a really strong matchup. I guess you could say Atlanta has a Paulo stopper in Mo Gay. Like I said, as much as Nog can, for some people be frustrating, he gave you 20 points tonight. I mean, the biggest issue with Nikhil wasn't really his offense or defense. He gave you 20 points on 6 and 11 shooting. That's efficient basketball. It was more his playmaking point guard skills can be a little shaky, which, again, you're not having any natural point guards out there outside of Keaton Wallace. And like I said, you got big games from Risacher, Dyson Daniels. Kongu gave you 14 and 7. And just, like I said, everybody pitching in at the best they can. So that's that. So let me get into the Risacher thing. So Quinn was asked after the game by Lauren Williams from the AJC about Risacher and just, is he on a minutes restriction? Just like, well, what's up with him and his minutes? And Quinn said that he respectfully declines to answer. He respectfully declined to answer the question. And a lot of people I didn't look at it that long, but initially all the reaction was people were pissed because they're like, what? Like I've talked about this on the pod. I said the games that y'all wanted Risacher to finish were the games he wasn't playing well in. So you could make an argument why he didn't do it. This was the one game against Orlando where he should have finished. He should have finished in this game. And people were just like, why is he not finishing? And they went with Vic Krejci in the closing lineup, which, I mean, Krejci wasn't even in the rotation at times this year. And you're finishing a game with him. And my only thought process was Orlando, when they made a run to try to get a little closer, they started doing some zone. And I think he was thinking, we need another ball handler passer in that situation. But even in that, I would have probably went with Zach there. But it was just weird that he did not answer the question. So now it's like, what's going on? Is there something happening between Zach and Quinn? Is there something that we don't know about Risacher? A lot of people are just like, what is happening? That is going to probably be a lingering question and point of focus for Hawks fans, is the Risacher thing. Because people are just like, I don't understand why we refuse to close with him. Why is Quinn against that? Is he on a minute? Because it seems like he's on a minute. It seems like when he gets to about 25-ish minutes, that's when his games come to an end. And if he has a bad game, it's going to be like 20. And so people are just trying to figure out, like, what is it? Like the fact that we're finishing games with Vic Krejci, no offense to Vic, but it's like you don't see him as a closing lineup player unless it's just, you have a bunch of injuries and you ain't got nobody else, which that wasn't the case for Atlanta. And I know a lot of people have not been happy with Quinn's rotations this year. They've really not liked him. I think he's done some good stuff, but I think some people just think, don't be afraid to play guys like Mo Gay more or like Zach more. Like if they're playing well, don't be afraid to keep it going. Like don't like at the end of the day, like if you're a player in their respective positions, if you see that person playing very well, you're not going to be upset that you're not maybe getting as many minutes because that he's playing well. Like if anything, you saw how he did on Paolo Banchero, Mo Gay, and you're probably like, listen, this is a game where maybe you don't play a Kongu as much. Or maybe you just go bigger and have Jalen at the 3, so then Mo can be out there with whoever you want at the center position, which Mo could also play center and then just switch. And I think that's something that Quinn, I think this is going to be the last time Quinn asked about this. I think people are going to try to dig just to figure out what's going on with that, because that is a very weird answer for that question, that you won't answer what's happening. Like, I mean, is Risacher tired or something? Like, people just want to know what that is about. And in a better situation for Quinn, I would think would just even be just, we're just, playing the flow of the game. Like whatever excuse that y'all may think is BS, like even that would have been better, where it's like playing the flow of the game. I felt like in that moment we needed this, and I felt like this was the best for us. The fact that he just was like, I'm not going to answer that question is like, dude, what does that mean? Like, because again, the last thing you want to see if you're a Hawks fan is if Zach's playing really well and aggressive like he did tonight, because I was very happy about how aggressive he was offensively, and then he's not getting minutes, and then he's not getting to play. Because then you're just like, the big question for Quinn is, how do you justify playing a player who is not playing a player who is playing well for you? Now you're creating pressure on yourself in that situation. Because at the end of the day, you always think your closing lineup is going to be your best players / who's playing the best. And you could not argue tonight that Zach was not one of the 5 best players for the Hawks tonight, and he should have been out there to play. So that's something that definitely raised the eyebrow of a lot of people in the Hawks community. A lot of people are kind of getting tired of Quin just because of the rotations so far this year. But, that's kind of that's where a lot of people are kind of feeling right now with the whole situation. And so on and so forth. So that obviously has been a big issue. I will also say this. The broadcast team also kind of mentioned it briefly tonight. And I think this kind of goes into what I've talked about the whole people are going to be like, are we better without Trae thing? But Jamal Crawford made a great point. And this is something I was also thinking about. Sometimes, especially with young players, when you have a star on the floor, when you have a guy like Trae who commands so much attention and has so much gravity at times, I think sometimes what happens is they kind of defer to him a lot. It's easy to defer to Trae. Like, he's the bailout guy. And so guys aren't as aggressive. Guys aren't attacking as much. And with Trae Young out, it's now forcing the team to have to kind of grow without him. Like, it's making them have to be aggressive. It's making Zach have to take more shots. It's making Dyson have to be more aggressive offensively. It's making guys kind of have to do more to make up for the loss. And the broadcast team mentioned how the Trae could also learn something from this, because now he can see what they're doing and what's working, and then he can try to integrate that into how can I keep my game and what I bring to the table positively for this team and integrate that with what they're doing right now. And Quin talked about at the beginning of the year about how, we haven't played a lot. We have to just build, learn, grow over the course of the first month or two, just because the guys haven't played a lot of games together. And I think, people were frustrated with how the Hawks were playing, but I think some of those things were also just they didn't play together a lot. And then, then Trae goes down pretty early, right? So right now, while they're still also just trying to grow as a team, they're growing without a major piece of the puzzle. And, but I think this could benefit them, because what was one of the biggest issues the Hawks have had at times was when Trae would go down, or not even Trae going down, when Trae would go to the bench, the Hawks sometimes would very much struggle to maintain leads, hold leads, stay in a game, a lead would increase when Trae was out, right? It was like we're very Trae dependent. We can't go without Trae. Now I think the Hawks are now forced to say we have to be able to do stuff without Trae. Because what you would hope to happen when they come back is that you can maintain as close as you can what you've been seeing defensively from the Hawks the last 3 games, but now you have that extra offensive punch. That is what people are looking at when they viewed this team on paper before the season and said, that could be a dark horse in the Eastern Conference. That could maybe be an Eastern Conference Finals team. And that's why people are trying, when people make that argument about better without Trae, is, listen, at the end of the day, the team can be competitive without him. I've said that they are better built to win some games without him. But if it gets to the postseason, they're only going to go so far, because they don't have that guy in those late moments who can break down a defense or have gravity where the defense is so worried about them that, that can open up other things for other players. And then that's on like Trae Young to find open guys. Remember, as much as you may hate some of the stuff he does, he is one of the most clutch players in the league. He's hit a lot of game winners. He's came up in big moments. He has been in those moments and showed up. Nobody right now, out of maybe KP in a few games, has done that in those moments. And that's what I think people, when they looked at this Hawks team, envision. You now have Trae, who can still do all of that. You got a 7-footer who can protect the rim. Mo Gay, who's a great defensive player, could be an all-NBA defensive player one day. A Kongu contributing off the bench. Jalen Johnson becoming an all-star. Zach taking a step. Dyson taking a step. Nall giving him great minutes off the bench. Luke Kennard giving him some shooting. All of those different things. And you were like, if we can mesh that together, if we can create that together, that should be a top 4 team that can make a run in the East, right? And I think that just with Trae being out may help them in the long run, because now Quin and them are now able to say, okay, when Trae comes back, we can take things that we have learned, gained while he was gone, and still apply them while he's back, so that we can maintain maybe more when he's off the floor, because this isn't new to us now. This isn't, well, we've had Trae the majority of the game, so we haven't had to do this a lot. It's, we will have a month, potentially a little bit more's worth of games without him. So when he comes back, it won't be when Trae takes his breaks. When he comes back, this is uncomfortable for us. Now, in saying this, obviously you need guys like Jalen, you need guys like KP to stay healthy, because like those are very big pieces to what they're trying to do. And you obviously don't also want to suffer any more point guard losses as well, or any guard losses in general, right? But I think that instead of trying to figure out what we're doing better and what we're not doing better, because like I said, we had another high turnover night. Like, you see at times the issues with when Trae is not on the floor with the team, because they just don't have that natural break the defense down kind of guy. You know, you saw when Orlando made that run, you know, it was just they did different things, and the Hawks offense just gets stagnant at times. You saw it at the end of the Brooklyn Nets game. They didn't have anybody to, I mean, and especially when KB went out, who can break down the defense and get a bucket. And that's why Trae is there. Like, you know, people are like, because I had someone say like, well, I think we can win some games without Trae. And then, you know, we have to think, you know, is it worth it for Trae in those last 2-3 minutes where he could be most effective for us? And I'm like, well, yeah, if you're trying to compete and make a run, yeah, you definitely need Trae. You get rid of it. Because somebody said just get a field general. Okay, I get the thinking. You know, everybody can get easier shots, right? Who's still going to, like, in the 4 quarters, Shea, he'll just say, give me it. Boom, 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 knock it down your face. And boom, 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 knock it down your face. Steph, boom, 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 knock it down your face. Who is that on the Hawks without Trae? Nobody. Like, Jalen, his game to me right now is not that type of game where he could just, 4th quarter, boom, 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 I'm going to knock it down your face. Because they're just going to wall the paint off and just say, all right, Jalen, we're not just going to let you cut. Jalen's best when he can just be moving, and then you can find him cutting or with momentum going downhill, which, again, you would imagine for the Hawks, Trae Young, double team, Jalen cuts, he's able to get out of the double team, boom, dunk. That's what you would envision in that situation. Not, you know, we got Dyson at the top of the key in the 4th quarter, like, brother, everybody gonna stay on their man. We will live with Dyson Daniels one-on-one. Where Trae, it's like, oh no, if Trae creep over. You know, Trae's coming. He might come downhill, try to stop him from getting a floater or something. So really the big thing, like I said right now, is to grow through this time without Trae. And then when Trae comes back, how can we make it all mesh together? That's going to be the key. Yes, Hawks are better defensively without Trae, but they are not better overall, because when you play the best, because remember, I'm pointing this out. We have beaten Indiana, who was winless at the time, Brooklyn, who is winless, and a Magic team who clearly does not look like the team people thought they were going to be. It's not like we've beat great teams while he's been gone right now. And then Cleveland, you went against a guy who on that side of the ball had a guy like Donovan Mitchell who said, I could just boom, 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 pull up in your face. And we just didn't have enough offense. At the end of the game, the offense just wasn't good enough against Cleveland. Even though we stayed in that game, they weren't good enough. And that's where Trae could have helped you. So, you know, I think so many people just get focused on the defensive aspect. And it's like, you got to understand, like, you got to have some offensive punch. You can't just say we're just going to play Memphis Grizzlies grit and grind and just hope that, I mean, he can get you to postseason. That's about it, though. If you want to try to make a run, you kind of need Trae and the rest of the team to mesh. But I do think that without Trae right now, this is fantastic for guys because they can get confidence more in Zach, more in Dyson, more in Jalen, more in Nikhil, more in all these guys. So then when they come back, now it's about making the pieces work and then taking that next step ahead. But let's go into player performances and then we'll wrap this up. So, like I said, Dyson Daniels in the bag tonight, man. Dyson Daniels spin moving. I mean, this was the best Like, this game was like the first game where I felt like, okay, the work he put in the offseason showed. Like, Dyson struggled being a year, and, people were ready to bail. People thought he was about to, he's stealing money from the team. Like, listen, he ain't the guy who they reported stole millions of dollars from the Hawks while he worked here, buying Porsches and gifts for a coworker and going to Europe on trips. All right. He ain't do it under the table. People thought he was stealing money in front of our faces. And the thing is, again, we are very impatient people nowadays. So if we ain't seen it off the bat, we just don't think he ain't gonna do it. Like, we gonna act like we don't have 70 plus games to fix it. People act like if he ain't doing it now, he ain't gonna do it ever. And it's just, that's ridiculous. But listen, Dyson is not going to be great offensively every single game. You just want him to be consistent. Can you give me 15 to 16 a night, brother? He gave you 18 a night. And obviously, like I mentioned, he needs to give you more offensively for you to survive without Trae. And tonight was his best offensive performance, 8 of 9 from the field, one three-pointer, and led all players for the Atlanta Hawks in plus minus. He was plus 25 from the floor. The Dyson Daniels impact tonight was incredible. 2 steals as well. He was really kind of, him and Risacher, either or, you could say, was the MVP of this game. Like, Dyson played incredible tonight, and just like they needed him to play this way to win this game. So big looks and big shout outs to Dyson Daniels. Jalen Johnson, like I said, 17, 6, and 5. These types of matchups are always interesting for him because, again, Magic's are a bigger team. Paolo is the one guy who, Jalen can't just overpower all the time. Because usually with what makes Jalen so effective is a lot of games he has mismatches because either you have someone who's too slow or they're not big enough. And Jalen, when they go against Paolo, is like the one guy who's like, oh yeah, I can match you in speed and strength. So, obviously he has to work a little bit harder, but I think overall he played well tonight. So like I said, 17 points in the game. He was the only starter though with a negative plus minus, but it was only -1. So, biggest thing for him, and we've talked about this, is just improving his defense, just improving on that side of the ball because they need him to. But I think Jalen, had a fine game tonight. He came out there, playing point forward and just trying to attack the rim. Obviously, you see what he can do on cuts, and I saw him with the little turnaround jumper mid range. Have y'all noticed the Hawks have been taking more mid range shots this year? If you remember the first couple of years of the Quin Snyder era, you never saw this team take jump shots. I saw DeJounte Murray. And then outside, and sometimes DeAndre Hunter. Now everybody taking middies. I guess Quin said, you know what? If that's the shot we got, take it. But yeah, so like I said, 20 points tonight, 1 rebound, 2 assists. Like I said, really tonight for a lot of people, it was his point guarding that wasn't great. But in terms of offense, he gave you 20 points, hit some big shots, shot efficiently from the field. I mean, and you just kind of have to live what he gives you from that perspective because you ain't got that many other answers outside of him. So you're going to have to live with it. But if he's giving you 20, that's a needed 20 that you need. KP, 15 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. Like I mentioned, wasn't really a great shooting night for him, but did get to the free throw line tonight 13 times. He is the master of just posting you up, whether you're smaller or bigger, which most of the time you're smaller. It's like every time he shoots it when he's like in a post up, he always looks like he's getting fouled. It's like he shoots because he's so long. Pause. He shoots like, I'm trying to get my shot up and get a good look, and this guy's in my airspace impeding me or hitting me, and it's like he's really good at drawing fouls. So, and like I said, there's just times where the Hawks just go up there and say, all right, KP, get us something here. And he'll post somebody up, make something shake. And, and I feel like KP, like I said, he's a guy that I think every game has gotten better just within the whole realm of the team. It's just, playing more and just getting more comfortable with what Quin's trying to do and what the team is trying to do. And like I said, this is the best game I think he's had as a defensive anchor for the Hawks. But he also only had 2 rebounds tonight. So again, I'm sure y'all look at that and say, why are you 7-3 and only got 2 rebounds? And that's just what KB is. He's not a rebounding big. That's just him. Y'all have to live with that. But you do want him to at least trying to be more active on the boards. Like I said, Risacher, 21 points tonight, 4 rebounds, 3 of 8 from field. It's funny. Somebody had said, they were like, I don't like the fact Risacher taking so many shots. And everybody was like, brother, Risacher needs to keep jacking up shots. Like, an aggressive and confident Risacher is the best Risacher. And it's always funny. Risacher has these games where he'll just play like this, and you're like, this is the player that we need to try to get more on a game basis. Because this is the Risacher that we want to see. But he also just has those games where either he's not aggressive or he doesn't do anything much. And so it's like, just the inconsistencies is the biggest thing with Risacher. If he can just become more consistent, we will be fine, especially without Trae. But, you know, you saw the aggression offensively, and I love that. Because he's great off the ball. Cutting off the ball, when you have given the ball to him running, that's when Risacher's at his best. And I'm glad the Hawks made an effort to try to get him off screens, off picks, get him moving towards the basket, and letting him take advantage in that situation. And like I said, Risacher was willing to pull up from three and shoot them things. And so really good stuff from Risacher tonight. And obviously, as I talked about earlier, the Quin Snyder, Risacher question and that thing, we'll just have to see how that evolves as the season goes on. But if Risacher is playing like this, it's going to be hard to deny Risacher minutes. Or else you're looking at people looking at this as coaching malpractice. So good stuff there. Okongwu 14-7-3 tonight. Had a block and a steal. Just a solid game. It's been the most consistent player probably for us this year, for the most part. Consistently giving us double digits. You know, playing 4 and 5 whatever is needed of him. Pretty much, I think for the most part, outside when Jalen's on the floor, he pretty much plays 4. Because I think Mo, they prefer more the center, and then KP, they prefer more the 7. But when Jalen's out there, he'll play more center. So, but Okongwu, good stuff tonight. Luke Kennard didn't make any threes tonight, but 6 points. Again, Luke Kennard is going to be a game-to-game basis, whether he's aggressive, whether he wants to have quick triggers. Obviously, when he shoots 3, it helps open up the offense more. But overall, he had the second highest plus-minus of anybody off the bench. Mo Gay, 5 points, 3 rebounds, great defense. Really, for him, is defense. His ability to defend guys like Paolo Banchero is really his most valuable trait. Like, literally, if you're going against an athletic big, Mo Gay should be the answer for the Hawks. I think they want Jalen to also be that answer, but I think, you know, like, you play against teams who have that type of, like, front line, Mo Gay probably should creep up there. He had 18 minutes tonight. Like, I think people want him to really get 20 on a consistent basis. But, I mean, Mo Gay, I mean, you've seen, you know, what he can do. You know, like I said, he can give you something offensively, but it's really the defense where his value will be felt with this team and where people are going to be like, wow, like Mo Gay. Keaton Wallace, 4 points, 3 rebounds, right? Obviously, he missed last game with a flu. Came back tonight, 4 points. You know, Keaton Wallace minutes. Nobody's going to ever love him. That's just how it is. And Vic Krejci, like I said, finished the game. I had 7 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist. He was actually plus 13 from the field. I know people were not happy with him finishing the game tonight, but like Krejci was like our second high. Oh, that's a lie. He was our 4th highest plus minus tonight. I mean, listen, we've all said that Krejci should play over Keaton Wallace. I think everybody's just like, I'm fine with Krejci playing. Just play him over Keaton Wallace. You know, and you know, he'll obviously be used during this period of time when Trae is gone, but you know, I think they played well tonight, so can't be mad at it. But overall, like I said, really good win for the Hawks. Get back to 500. Their next game is an NBA Cup game on Friday against the Toronto Raptors, so that's a get-back game as well. You win that game, you go 2-0 in the NBA Cup group, and you also get your win back, and then you go over 500. So there's a lot of positives that can come under it, especially with the Saturday game. They have a back-to-back. Lakers coming to town. That's going to be, to me, where are we without Trae game? Because that's a game where you're like, all right, we're going against an offensive juggernaut, Luka. Can the power of group ball overcome Luka going? I mean, and there's no guarantee he's going to go nuclear, but like Luka potentially having a huge game. Plus, Austin Reeves can give him some offensive support, and then also trying to control the other Lakers. That's going to be an interesting matchup. But they need to focus on Toronto, NBA Cup game. You're playing for something. Because I've always said, I mean, if the Hawks win that, you're in pretty good shape. Because remember, you blew out Indiana, got like 20-point differential. So you win this game, you could increase that and really increase your chances to kind of get, like I said, get into the knockout round again. And then maybe around that time, Trae Young maybe could be back for the NBA Cup games. if they make it to that point. So if not, that small break teams get when the NBA Cup goes into its final four will probably be around the time Trae comes back. But to me, but obviously, like I said, he'll be reevaluating in 4 weeks. So, and that doesn't mean that he'll be back in 4 weeks. So we'll just have to see how he's coming along in his recovery. But that's kind of what I'm feeling with that situation. So obviously, guys, obviously, like I said, good win tonight against our Magic. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on the game, what you thought. What did you think of the game? What would you like to see better? What would you like to improve? Obviously, we talked about some questions already in the show, so I'd love to hear your opinions on, Quin's answer and my theory on, the team and how you really try to mesh what they're doing now with what Trae does, so you can get that offense and defensive output to really take you to that next level in the Eastern Conference and from there. So if you enjoyed this episode, definitely subscribe to the channel. Like the video, leave a comment down below. Audio listeners, obviously appreciate you guys tuning in. Obviously, usually audio listeners get the podcast first because it's easier to get audio out first with the video pod. So, appreciate everybody who, if you can't get to a mobile phone, don't be afraid to look me up on Believe the Hawks, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, any podcasts available anywhere. You can find Believe in the Hawks on the go, at work, whatever. So definitely all the support always is great. And follow me on Twitter, Bryce_2K as well. Also Blue Sky as well. If y'all want that, I can drop that in the comments. So, so that's about it for me. So like I said, Hawks next game, NBA Cup game against Toronto on Friday. We'll have a full recap. It's your boy Bryce Lewis. See you next time.